fellow Falcoholics. What is up? Welcome to episode 293 of the Falcoholic Live. I'm your host, Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin, joined once again by one of our newest compatriots over here at the Falcoholic. He is Tre'Shon Diaz at Tre'Shon on the X, Twitter, whatever. Tre'Shon, welcome back to the show. How are you doing?
Well, y'all let me back, so I think I'm doing pretty well. I'm here. I'm here to stay for as long as you guys will have me. So
Yes, we did allow it. We had the first couple shows, and it's like, okay, you passed the test, you're welcome to come on. It's a sort of a rite of passage. So welcome back. Purely coincidental that Adnan is not able to make it tonight, obviously, but but no, Adnan will be back soon as well. But welcome back, everyone. I know we took a bit of a little hiatus there. I hope you guys were able to get a little bit of time off when we were in the absolute pit of the dead zone. But Falcons training camp just 1 week away now. We don't have very much longer to go at all until the news starts flying in from all corners about what is happening. And that's what we're going to talk about tonight, the sort of stuff that we are looking to see, give you guys a nice little preview of sort of some of the position battles, some of the depth chart things, some of the schematic things, just the little things that we're really interested in seeing once training camp gets kicked off. And some of these things will be answered, and some of them will not be answered probably until preseason, maybe the end of preseason. So, some of them we might have answers to earlier than others, but a lot of great stuff to get to. This is a pretty intriguing offseason, obviously, with a lot of new coaches coming in, quite a few new players as well. So we're going to break it all down for you guys here tonight. Before we get deep into training camp, I want to bring you a quick word from tonight's sponsor. Once again, guys, it's BetOnline. BetOnline is your number one source for all your sports betting needs this season and this offseason. Guys, I know that a lot of sports are down, but BetOnline's got baseball, golf, soccer, including all the top fights in UFC, MMA, and boxing as well. And they've got every stat, every matchup, and even live odds and spreads while the games are being played. And when the game's over, you can head on over to BetOnline's new online casino and get in on that game of blackjack or poker, or unwind with one of their over 150 slots games. So what are you waiting for, folks? Head on to that website today, BetOnline, to get in on the action. Just make sure when you sign up to use our promo code BELIEVE, that's BLEAV, for your 50% free bet credit on your first deposit up to $250. BetOnline, the game starts here. All right. Well, Tre'Shon, I figure for this one, everyone's talking about it. They talked about it all off season. It's quarterback, right? Everybody wants to know how the quarterbacks are doing, how the quarterbacks are looking. Obviously, we want to know that Kirk Cousins is playing well, but I feel like there's perhaps even more intrigue around Michael Penix. And, as a rookie quarterback coming into an NFL camp, there's going to be a lot of pressure, a lot of eyes on him. And, I think expectations are pretty high. We'll see if he starts with the twos. I know he worked mostly with the threes throughout, OTAs and mini camps. So I think that's one of the first things people are going to look for, is how do these quarterbacks look, starting with Cousins, but going down the depth chart as well. But so far I've heard good things about Cousins. So, I'm less worried about that. I mean, I feel like he sort of has to check the box, but I guess for me, I'm more interested in seeing like, okay, how is Penix coming along? Not that there's a quarterback controversy, but that's just sort of, where my mind goes, is like, how is Penix looking? Because I think we all, of course, want him to look good.
yeah, I think it's definitely going to be about the quarterbacks, because Michael Penix was arguably one of the biggest draft storylines, of the entire NFL draft. So not just for the Atlanta Falcons and their fans, but everybody. So, I think I'm right there with you. It's not going to be a competition. We're in a really interesting place. We want our $100 million guarantee quarterback to look the part, and we also want our top 8 quarterback to also simultaneously look the part without either of them, messing up the timeline. We keep hearing this timeline, with Kirk and everything like that. So yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then Taylor Heineke's still around, and John Paddock, undrafted free agent. So we added 2 rookie QBs. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens, how things shake out. Is Taylor going to stick around? Are we going to keep 3 quarterbacks? It seems a little expensive, but who knows? Maybe that's the way they want to move.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think there's definitely something to be said about that. with Kirk, it's like obviously we all want to be good. We want to be worth the investment. It's and we all and I think a lot of people also want to see Penix look encouraging. Not necessarily better than Kirk because we don't. It's very it's very dicey. It's like this narrow window of like this is exactly what we want. Anything else is going to cause some problems. But ultimately, the problems would only be, I think, if there were bad play all around. I think as long as somebody's playing well, then we should be okay. But yeah, Kirk, we want to see the offense obviously look better than it did last camp, right? It was not great, and I would like things to look a little bit better. Maybe we could see some downfield plays. Maybe we could just see that the offense is operating just at a higher level in the passing game than we did last year. So that would be a nice start. But then, how does Penix look? Does he rise up the depth chart? Does he surpass Taylor Heinicke at any point? And also, like you said, I mean, I think it's worth monitoring Taylor Heinicke's progress as well. How is he fitting into this new offense? It would seem to be a good fit for him. Salary wise, doesn't seem likely that they're going to move on. So, if all three quarterbacks could be quality players, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. It would be nice. And I think they're pretty committed to keeping all three. So if all three could show signs of life, I mean, that would be encouraging. It'd be a good thing.
Yeah, you hope for that. That maybe that mid-season Taylor Heinicke trade value, something like that. You never know. You definitely, like you said, if they're on the roster, you want them to look good. So the better that they perform, the better it'll work out for all of us at the end of the day. So, and to your initial point there, yeah, I would like to see it. Like, I just hope we get to see it. We haven't really got to see. We won't see much. It's training camp. It's preseason, but just get to see some. Just like show me something because we haven't gotten to see anything down the field in a while. It feels like.
Yeah, it's like that meme. It's like, poking him with the stick. Come on, do something. Like that was basically all of last training camp watching the offense. So hopefully we don't have to poke the offense with a stick to get it going. But we can always keep that in the back pocket just in case. But hopefully this year won't be necessary. But yeah, I mean, I think the quarterback is obviously what all of the media is going to focus on. Everyone's going to be watching Penix. But I think in reality, for most Falcons fans, Penix playing well would be nice, but it's not really like the most important thing. It kind of moves on to other positions, and I think obviously one of the biggest ones still is Kyle Pitts' health. How much is Kyle Pitts working into the offense? Where is he working into the offense? And kind of to a lesser extent, how much is Charlie Werner playing? Because they did invest a decent contract in him to be the second tight end. So to me, I'm curious like how much both of those guys are on the field together, because it seems like they gave Charlie Werner enough money where you're like, well, he's probably going to play, but then that's two tight ends, and the Rams don't use two tight ends. They never do that. They only play 11. So where are they playing Kyle Pitts? Maybe Kyle Pitts is just a receiver after all. I know some fans, think that's where we're gonna get. But what do you think about that, the whole scenario?
Yeah, the ever elusive power slot that we thought we would see during the Arthur Smith era is not dead. We have a chance to see Kyle Pitts play that role. I think that there's expectations that Drake London will play that role, but I think when we talk about seeing both of the tight ends on the field at the same time, I think that's probably, the way in which we'll see them featured together. I think that having Pitts in that role, I think he can play that part in this offense. I don't think there'll be any issues there. He might get some opportunities on the outside. I don't think that he'll get a ton out there. It'll certainly be matchup by matchup basis, but I think he's really going to thrive more in the slot and be able to work the middle of the field and really be a good outlet for Kirk. And then with Charlie, I think you're just getting a really solid traditional inline tight end. He's going to be able to do the dirty work. He's going to be able to do the blocking. It's very nice. I think this tight end room is like sneaky good. I think it actually kind of just really dawned on me yesterday when we were talking about it with some of the guys at New Millennium Falcon. And it's just a really good looking room right now where if everybody stays healthy, it's interesting to see who could fill that tight end 3 or 4 spot. If, Fitzpatrick will maybe finally get the breakthrough this year or whatever could happen there. But yeah, I'm really interested just to see the two guys we've got at the top of the depth chart right now.
Yeah, no, I think that's exactly right. And I think that those are the two key guys. And I think Werner's going to be the primary blocker. And Pitts, they're just going to move around. And we know this is a coaching staff, assuming they follow a similar ethos to the Rams, that they will definitely be happy to move him around, and they'll do it a lot. But it seems like, Pitts may be the guy that is moving most of all in this offense, which I think is a good fit for him. I agree that like you don't want to use him too much outside. It felt like last year that there was just like never any opportunities, and it's like, well, I think you could find some matchups where that might be good, but he's always been a guy that's thrived inside, like a slot receiver and inline tight end in college, because the two-way go and hitting those in just the seam routes and getting vertical and all that. But I think he does run routes well. I think he moves really well for a guy his size. You don't have to limit him to just being a vertical threat. So I hope that they utilize him in a lot of ways. We saw how dangerous he could be on those like intermediate crossing path, that sort of stuff against linebackers. He's just too fast when he cuts. So it's just tough for them to keep up. So I think that those could be some big gains in our future there with Kyle Pitts. I hope that we get to see him used in a little bit more of a creative way this year. And I certainly have faith in this coaching staff to do that. We'll have to see exactly how that comes about, but definitely excited to see that play out. Maybe we'll get to see a little bit of it in training camp. Probably not too much.
Yeah.
But yeah, probably not too much. They keep that stuff pretty under wraps. But yeah. And then I think the next thing that it's just kind of going down the position group list here. But the next thing people are probably going to watch after Kyle Pitts is, the receiver group. They want to see, Drake London. They want to see, I don't think anyone's concerned about Drake London. So that one's, just seeing where he lines up and that sort of thing. But I think all eyes are kind of on Darnell Mooney, like the big ticket acquisition. Some people think he's just a slot. Some people think he's just outside as like a deep threat. That's never really been his thing. He's kind of always been like a 50-50 slot outside player. But, Mooney is a big addition, big ticket add, and like how he mixes in with Kyle Pitts and Drake London, I think is one of the more fascinating things to watch when we get to training camp.
Yeah, I think, and it's the other thing too with Mooney is like he came from the Bears offense, which has like been notoriously, criticized, and very unconventional in how they play just around with Fields. So I agree with you in that. I think, I don't think Mooney's really even gotten to see his full potential of what he's going to be able to do or what his abilities can let him do within an offense. So I'm very excited to see. I'm very excited to see this group, and then just kind of thinking about, who's leading the group with Ike Hilliard. This is a guy who's got a really good, track record. First of all, he's worked under both McVay and Shanahan. He was in Washington, he was there when Kirk was there. He's got a lot of familiarity there. He has worked and done well with a lot of young wide receiving groups like the Steelers, and that like when Chase Claypool was fetching a near first round pick, that's, Ike Hilliard was there during that time. So it'll be fun to see him and just know that these guys are with a former wide receiver and a like long tenured wide receiver coach. I think, a lot of fans were a little off put or just, maybe didn't think that TJ Yates, who is holding it down as the QB coach this year, where I think he is going to do a fantastic job, because that's what he played. And he's even said that he's much more comfortable doing that role, when they've talked to him this year. So looking at how this staff is set up for the wide receiver group and everything like that, I think that Mooney's in a really good position here to break out, because there's been some chatter that the Falcons still don't have a wide receiver too, but that contract says otherwise.
Yeah, they clearly view him as that. And I think some, maybe you consider Kyle Pitts the target too, or whatever you want to say, but yeah, I mean, in terms of wide receiver targets, you have to think Darnell Mooney's going to get a lot of them. They seem to view him as a guy that can do more than just run deep, and that's been borne out. I mean, if you watch Darnell Mooney play, he's never been just a deep threat. He gets good separation. He runs good routes. He's small, so that's always going to be a limiting factor. But I mean, I you look at the more and more of the receiver analytics, and what it tells you is like wide receiver size is probably overrated. Now, like very small wide receivers, that can still be problematic. I mean, there's definitely something to that. But in terms of the big receivers, like the really big ones, there's diminishing returns once you get above, 75th percentile size. It's just like, maybe it's not as important as we all thought. But, Mooney, I think, is really fascinating to see how he gets worked in. And obviously, they've invested just a ton in bringing a lot more speed and dynamic athleticism to the receiving core, which makes sense considering that the passing game is going to be more of a focus, right? I mean, that you don't just need your big blockers out there anymore. But I behind Drake London and Darnell Mooney, I think it gets really fascinating because what we've heard I think a lot of people assumed that Rondale Moore was going to be this number 3 receiver. He was going to be the primary slot guy when Pitts wasn't playing, and like, but it seems like really Ray McLeod has been the one
Uh,
that
yeah.
has taken over the job, and Rondale has had to rehab an injury,
Mhm.
so he missed some time, that sort of thing. So it's training camp hasn't even started yet, so we're far from deciding any battles at this stage. But yeah, I'm curious what you think about that, because that was a little bit surprising to me, seeing how high up the depth chart Ray was.
Yeah, so Ike Hilliard actually gushed about Ray
Mhm.
Ray, and I didn't realize this, but then I put two and two together. Ray Ray was in Pittsburgh when Ike was there, and Ray Ray
Mhm.
was just primarily doing return work, but he obviously left a really good impression on Ike Hilliard because he is talked about how he knew that Ray Ray was like ready for this and was going to go off. So that's just kind of exciting to hear that, like from the coach, I think so suddenly too, because like you said, I think there was a lot of expectation that Moore's probably, going to take that 3 spot. But, as of right now, it looks like Ray Ray, has the lead. And, he is another small guy, but this is a willing blocker. This is a guy who's played
Mhm.
running back. This is a guy who's like done a lot of different things. So with him, when you watch his game, it really is so much heart and effort.
Mhm.
That I don't think he's really a liability when you do need to do some of those run concepts and other things like that, where you bring these receivers in tight, and a lot of the other things that we saw the Rams do with Puka and Cup and everybody there. So as long as they have the will, I think that they're going to be able to see the roster, and Ray Ray definitely has it.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think he's been a pleasant surprise so far through OTAs and the beginning of the offseason work, and as someone that looks like he's going to be probably an offensive contributor and not just a special teams returner. And yeah, anyone who returns kicks or punts, you got to be tough as hell. You can't like you're going to get clobbered probably half the time that you're returning those kicks. So you got to be able to handle that physicality, and he certainly has had zero issues with that. So excited to see how he fits in if he ends up taking that job. What we saw with the Rams last year was that the third and fourth receivers did rotate to some extent. And so we could see that with Ray Ray and Rondale. But it's going to be fascinating to see how they divvy up the snaps. But good problem to have when you got other receivers
Yeah.
capable of contributing. I feel like the Falcons' third receiver the last couple of years was just like, who? Who's this guy? Yeah, I've never seen him play before. Yeah, no,
Now it's
yeah.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, Kadarius Hodge. Yes, the next guy. No,
That's
no
a name.
slander to Kadarius Hodge. He's he's a very good special teamer. I feel like he's still
That's
going to be in
right.
the mix. Um, elite special teamer, Kadarius Hodge.
Yeah,
But so he'll be in the mix. Like I can't see them cutting him. I think he's just too good on special teams. And he can play inside outside. Like he just checks all the boxes for that. Like sort of wide receiver 5. He's going to be active. Might not play any offensive snaps, but he's going to be a core special teamer. So.
it would take a lot. It would take a lot to get to have for him to not make the roster. I agree with you. It would definitely be a surprise cut.
Yeah, it would be pretty shocking to me. So, yeah, and then after that, it seems like really we've I know like usually there's always the battle of the wide receiver 6 training camp darling, but it seems like Casey Washington's kind of like run away with it in OTA. So we'll see if there's any more intrigue surrounding that or not. But I mean, yeah, I've been really excited about Casey Washington like going so far as to like, oh, maybe I'll pick him up in like my deep dynasty leagues just to like have him just in case. I can't let somebody else get a Falcons receiver. That's not possible. So, but yeah, I mean, I think Washington's really interesting, and seeing if he can do more. I mean, I think given his OTA performance, it would be kind of shocking if he lost his grip on like the 6th receiver spot at this stage. But I do wonder, like, can he do anything more than that? Like, can he like get ahead of Hodge on the depth chart? Can he get ahead of Rondale Moore? It seems like getting ahead of Ray McLeod would be pretty difficult at this point, and we don't think he's getting ahead of Drake London or Darnell Mooney, obviously, but so there might be a little bit of wiggle room for him to move up. So I think he's one of, if you're looking for that sort of, back of the roster darling receiver to watch, it seems like Casey Washington's the heavy favorite at this stage.
Yeah, I would think I think the one thing that separates him and works in his advantage out of the guys you just named there is that he has the best prototypical size out of the group. So, if the offense and if Zach Robinson really feels like on the outside opposite of London that he wants that kind of more matching prototypical, traditional X size, Washington's going to be the next guy on the roster that offers that. So, there is a path for him to get more play time. And like you said, I think it'd be really interesting to see, what he can do and how he'll contribute,
Yeah. Fascinated to see how that shakes out. And I'm sure we'll have our practice squad wide receiver darlings, because that always happens. But I'm team Isaiah Wooden. I have not seen any of him yet, but I just feel it. I'm feeling it with Isaiah Wooden. So I think he has a lot of fans among the Falcons fan groups as well. But there's a lot of guys there. Obviously, we got Josh Ali coming back, Chris Blair from last year as well. Dalen Baldwin, who I think was recently signed. We get CFL star Austin Mack, from Ohio State.
Right.
So there's some guys, right? I mean, and there's even more guys in there that I don't know anything about. So, there's going to be a lot of guys, a lot of wide receivers, and I know there's going to be a darling that emerges, somebody. So.
Yeah, it kind of feels like it's just a trademark of those McVay, Shanahan offenses, right? There's just one guy that you'll have never heard of that's going to appear, and that's going to be us this year. We're going to manifest that. So, I'm with you. We don't know who it could be, but we know somebody is going to step up.
Oh yeah, somebody is definitely going to be that guy, and I'm just excited to find out who it is. But yeah, the next thing I would talk about would be offensive line, but it's like I feel like there's not a whole lot to watch with the offensive line. I mean, I think it's more or less settled. So I guess it's more like, just do they look like they're gelling? Do they look good? How good does that first team look? Maybe there's a few depth spots up for grabs. But even that, it's like I feel like this is the least important offensive line training camp from a outside viewer perspective, because it's like, well, all the 5 starting spots theoretically should be settled. So fingers crossed, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. So I don't think there's too much to cover with the offensive line. I think we could probably move on from that one, just because. Yeah, I mean, if people want to talk deep depth battles, we can. We can.
I'm like, the Storm Norton, looking for him to hold down the swing spot. You always want your team to have a good swing tackle. I think that he proved that for us last year when he came in and had a great game in Houston. Probably played against Will better than most did last year, honestly. But yeah, I think Drew Dahlman contract year. How's that going to go down? I mean, we got a lot of people coming up on the checkbook here, but Dahlman looking to have a good year, looking for Bergeron to take that next big step. I think that if he does, we could legitimately be a top 5 unit. I don't think we're there yet, but I think we're close. And I think that we have, everybody we need to get there. And also going to be interesting to see Dwayne Ledford doing some run coordinating there. Excited to see what he has to add to the offense and kind of see what him and Robinson cook up together.
Yeah, no, I think that'll be fun. And I'm excited to see that group. I think you touched on the good depth battles. Love some Storm Norton. I'm glad anybody named Storm, I feel like I just need on my team. I need the Storm to show up to Atlanta. So
will Tyler Vrabel survive? I'm interested. Yeah, that's the one. Right. Now I'm like,
that's the one.
Let's see.
I think they're going to keep both, right? I mean, Tyler Vrabel had to come in and play one game as a left tackle, completely off the practice squad, basically, and he did it. He did it just fine. So, I think that's going to buy you a lot. It's like you played left tackle in an NFL game for basically the whole game, and you didn't get destroyed. So that's probably better than most depth offensive line at this point. So and obviously you always want to stay in the Vrabel family's good graces. You never want to upset the Vrabels. You want to be able to keep them on your team just in case. I mean, I'm just saying, Mike Vrabel, if he gets antsy somewhere, maybe come to Atlanta. I don't know, but I don't know. I'm just saying is all. We're just having a conversation. Yeah. But we could probably move on to the defense, I guess. With the defense, probably higher stakes with some of these battles and things. I think we're not really going to be able to evaluate the pass rush in training camp. I know people always ask about that. You can't really evaluate it in training camp. You're not really learning a whole lot. You can sometimes see oh, that looks like he might have got a sack there. That's cool. But It's not really.
It's
You're
week
gonna have to wait
5
to
and we're deep
preseason.
into one-on-one drill
Yeah.
videos.
Yes, you can see who's
Week
like
5
hitting the spin move, or whatever. But it will be interesting to see. You'll be able to see where guys line up. You'll be able to see some stuff about who's aligning where, who's in the first team package, who's in the third down package, that sort of stuff. So I think that's still fascinating with like the edge rushers and the outside linebackers and all that stuff. Like, how do they divvy up the snaps between Lorenzo Carter and Ebiketie and Braylon Trice? And where is James Smith-Williams playing? Does D'Angelo Malone have any chance of making the roster? Like these sorts of things. Zach Harrison, what's he doing? I think Zach Harrison's probably the most interesting one because it's like, I feel like he could line up and down the defensive line, and maybe he will, but I'm just curious to see. But it's a fascinating group. Like this is definitely one of the more interesting ones.
It's a crowded room right now. We got 11 players listed as a defensive lineman right now. I think Contavious Street, another name, is coming back.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Interested to see how he'll do. I'm with you. I think I'm most excited to see Harrison. I think the scheme switch, and then I just think kind of what Raheem Morris did and what Lake, it seems like they plan on doing and carrying over from the Rams is really going to play into his play strengths and give him a lot of opportunities. Like you said, I think we'll see him play in quite a few different spots. He can play anything between 3 to 5. So it's going to be really fascinating to see kind of how they play him. We got a couple of rookies. I'm interested to see, if this is the late round Georgia draft pick that sticks onto that makes the 53 and that we see, start playing. I know we got a lot of Dogs fans that'll be excited about that. Is like you said, we're not going to get these things answered in training camp, but, I think just seeing progress with guys like Rukaroro, who people, maybe are thinking, boy, that was a costly investment. Hoping to see good things from Dorless. You really just want to hear the right things from the coaching staff and then just watch these guys kind of get their feet wet throughout training camp and preseason. And you got to hope for the best after that. Cause like you said, we're not going to figure anything out in terms of who's getting 10 sacks.
Right.
Training camp play.
Need my training camp crystal
like
ball.
That.
Yeah. No, you're not going to be able to evaluate all that much. It's more like you would love to see, you always want to see the rookies moving up the strings throughout training camp. Like a lot of teams will put the rookies like with the third, fourth string to start camp. But then you want to see the guys that you are expecting to play in the season, you want to see them move to like the first, second unit at some point. That doesn't mean they'll be in the first string technically, but that you want them to be sort of with that group because those are the guys that are making the roster more than likely. So, and you're not going to cut rookies that are playing with the third string. I mean, for the most part, obviously not all rookies are safe, but I would really like to see, how quickly does Rook get into the second string? I think he was already doing that some in OTAs and minicamp, so he should be over there pretty quick. Brandon Dorless, same thing. Zion Logue, he's probably got a little bit farther to go because
it's going to be a tougher battle for Zion.
Yeah.
We've got a lot of good guys in the interior.
Yeah.
LaCale London, is Eddie Goldman.
Right. How long does Eddie Goldman last? How long does Eddie Goldman last? Does he last through training camp? I mean, I don't know. Maybe that Bet Online, get on that prop bet right now. Like, how many weeks does he make it?
Yeah.
But I can't believe he's back. I still can't believe it. Yeah.
We're a week away and he's still here. So, this is, I think, is about as close as it's gotten, it feels like.
I've never got to see him in training camp. So,
Yeah.
No one has. No one ever has. Yeah. So, maybe with the Bears. But, yeah. So there's a lot of guys. And then it's like, you're going to have to monitor how it goes because, it's always nice to have extra guys because like we saw, I think it was, I don't remember if it was last year or the year before, but they ended up losing like 2 or 3 guys in training camp that were like the primary depth guys. And it was like after that, I think it was 2 years ago that this happened. And then it was like, oh, well, there goes all the depth. And then it was like, it's just Grady Jarrett now. And it was very scary. And some of the guys they brought in to fill those gaps are like LaCale London and stuff like that, who now is stuck around for multiple years. But it's, not all these guys are going to make the roster if everyone stays healthy. But not everyone's probably going to stay healthy. I certainly hope they do, all of them. But you can't just have, we only need, 4 decent defensive tackles because, like, the 5th one's not going to make the roster. But, injuries happen, and you got to have some backups. But I think this is, like, the strongest top-to-bottom, like, interior group that they've had in so long, because it's like, I mean, you could have like 2 or 3 guys get cut and make other rosters. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
it's just, yeah. Um,
I don't know, and
like Taquan, like,
it
is Taquan gonna make it? Like, I don't know. Like,
yeah, man. It's good. I mean, he's one of the him and gosh, like you said, it's going to be tough. Hard seeing who is going to be that name, because unfortunately it is going to be somebody, and you know they'll definitely find somewhere else to land though.
yeah,
I
yeah.
think, like you said, a lot of these guys, whoever, if they can't make it in this room, are going to make it in another one, and that's a great. That means really good things for us and how they've put this together.
Yeah, definitely a good problem to have, even though it's sad that you probably are gonna have to say goodbye to some of these like quality contributors from last year's team. Like Contavious Street, like Kale London, Taquan Graham, like one of those guys is, maybe two of those guys are not gonna make it, so
Yeah.
we'll have to see how that shakes out. That's definitely gonna be one of the more interesting things to watch. And then linebacker, like, who are the 2 starting linebackers? How does that shake out? Because it's been variable so far, and I know we talked a lot about this on the podcast we did. But I think the
Yeah.
linebacker battle and how they distribute those snaps and how those guys line up and play, I think, is one of the more fascinating ones to watch in training camp as a whole. Just because Troy Anderson's got a huge camp, Nate Landman earned a ton of fans. The only thing we know is that Caden Ellis is playing, but like, and all of them are probably going to play. And then like now we're probably going to have a huge Captain America contingent, with JD Bertrand, who apparently has been impressing too. So it's going to be a battle royale at linebacker.
Yeah, it's definitely going to be really interesting. I think, kind of like you said, with, all the other groups that we've talked about, really curious to see what the depth chart looks like, kind of, and especially, as it progresses throughout the season. Will they show us Caden at Sam at all during any of the preseason, during training camp? That'll be an interesting thing to monitor, because then, that kind of will then tell us, well, if they plan on having all 3 of them on the field at once, then maybe JD Bertrand is really going to be needed to keep on this roster. How many linebackers are they going to carry, things like that, and then the ripple effect that would have on outside linebacker and so on and so forth. So it's going to be really interesting just to kind of see where the snaps are distributed, and how it shakes out at the end of camp. And I'm pulling for Troy. Pulling for all of them.
Yeah,
Feels like,
yeah.
again, another good problem to have, like the interior defensive line room. It sounds like we've got a really competitive and great linebacker room. And, if everybody can live up to their expectations of what we all have for them, then we're going to be set.
Oh yeah,
For
it's
the
gonna
end
be
of the season.
fantastic. Yeah. No, I mean, I really liked the Bertrand pickup just because I love day 3 linebackers. That's like my like thing. It's like I always want a day 3 linebacker every year, like because they just hit. Like every year, day 3 linebackers hit. Like every draft class, you'll see multiple day 3 linebackers just come in and start and be like, okay, it's a starter. There's a starter right there, and it's like it's hard to find starters on day 3. Like you try finding starters at like corner on day 3. Like it especially after like the 4th round. I mean, it's tough. Edge rusher starters after the 4th round, like after the 3rd round, even it's tough. Linebacker, we can do it. We can find him we can find him there. And it's just because teams tend to devalue the position, but I think we've seen that a lot of the best defenses have really good linebacker play. And obviously with Caden Ellis, I think he has shown that he can do anything, and had to last year, because I think he got sort of pushed into the Mike middle linebacker role after Trey Anderson went down. I think the idea was maybe that he was going to get to rush the passer a little bit more given his skill set. But he had to assume the coverage role because Landman's not as capable in coverage. But if Troy Anderson's healthy and he's been able to spend, his year rehabbing, sort of hitting the books and getting his mind to where it needs to be the Mike and handle the coverage, like, I think that's what could really make this defense a lot better. And there will be other areas where they're probably not going to be as good as last year, right? I don't know if they're getting 40 plus sacks again, right? But I think having a really good coverage linebacker is something they just never had last year. So that could be a big boost, again, especially against certain types of teams. But Trey Anderson, in theory, is just so much more than a good coverage linebacker. Like he's like the guy that can chase down Lamar Jackson. He's like the guy, and Lamar Jackson's faster, for the record, but like most other linebackers would have no chance. Like if you're starting, 5 yards away from Lamar, even if he's got to get past you, like you're still not catching him. Troy might have a chance to switch directions and get a hand on Lamar, whereas no other linebacker would. But he can do stuff that a lot of linebackers can't. And also, I just want to say, like, people are like, oh, he should be a pass rusher or a running back. Like, let's just have him be a linebacker first. Okay, then we could talk about making him into 15 positions. All right, let's just let the man play linebacker for at least a season and just like let him get settled a little bit before we start getting crazy with it. So,
it's wild stuff. I agree.
Yeah. All the discourse on Troy, it's getting spicy.
I think people really haven't realized how little we've seen. And obviously, I get it. A lot of the discussion is potential and, everything like that, theoretical and whatnot. But the athleticism is there. The elite ability is there. It really is just making sure everything clicks, and then health, at this point, because that's, what prevented him from seeing the field last year. And it's unfortunate because, we really need to see this guy play, and he really just needs the reps at this point. And I think it'll all come together. And just patience. What gets people so hung up about Troy is the fact that he's second round pick. And because, like you said, you can't find linebackers on other days. And I think that is why Bertrand's here. I think he's here to kind of be, just a little bit of added pressure. This is a guy who definitely knows the position. He's definitely going to, I think, be able to handle, everything that's going to be his job and asked of him. So it's just going to be on Troy to execute and be able to do the same thing.
Yeah, I agree. I think he's like, I'm just repeating my take from last year. Troy's the biggest wild card on this team. Like if he hits, like he's like actually a lottery ticket, where it's like if you actually cash the whole thing, it's like, oh well, you just won $1 million. He could be the best linebacker in the NFL, or you could get nothing, or you just scratch it off and there's nothing there.
Like you said, he is a lottery ticket. If he hits, like he's going to push this defense up. Like with him, it's going to go up from, you're going to be concerned mainly about one thing, and it's going to be the pass rush, which I understand is a very important part of the game. But Troy, if he cashes that ticket, like you said, it's going to elevate the rest of this team and everybody around him. And I mean, the sky's the limit from there in terms of how you can build this defense and where you can start investing more of those resources, like at edge that everybody wants to. So
yeah, no, I think they're trying. It seems to me like this offseason, it was like, we're gonna solidify the middle. Like we're gonna get the quarterback. We're gonna make sure the offensive line stays together. We're gonna get our tight end set, and then we're gonna bolster the interior defensive line with everything we've got, and make sure the linebacker room is all set. And then after this year, we're gonna go take care of the outside stuff. We'll probably add a little bit more to receiver. Maybe we'll get some edge rushers in here, maybe add a quarterback, a safety, whatever. But it seems like this year the emphasis was like, we're going to get the middle right, and then we're going to branch out after that. And you can't do everything in one off season. Like if you do, you spread it out, and it's like maybe you raise everything up a little bit, but sometimes it's better to just make one thing great or really good, and then have okay everywhere else, because you need difference makers. You can't just have guys that are 70s everywhere. It's like, oh, well, they're above average. It's like, well, just an above average team. It's not that great. Like nobody, that's fine. That's better than what we've had, but is that really winning anything? Maybe not.
Yeah. And, running the ball in low scoring games is cool again. If you looked around what happened in the league last year, that's kind of where things are trending right now. So you better be able to stop the run. And I agree with you. That's what it really looks like they set out to make sure that they can continue doing. We're one of the best run defenses last year. And that really did help carry the defense and the team for a lot of games. And they wanted to make sure that, they could continue that this year and then be able to start building into the passing game and start to solidify that as well. So, I like the moves. I think, I think we're going to see them pay off as well.
Yeah, I think the run defense will still be good. I'm not very concerned about that, at least. I think the pass rush and that I think is certainly another conversation. But the run defense I think will be good. I think they've loaded up the run defense. We shouldn't be able to. At least we have that. right. It's like, okay, like
Yeah.
if they could at least be a good run defense, then that's something. You're hanging your hat on something on Sundays. But speaking of the passing game, right? Like cornerback, I think is also one of the more fascinating ones. But we do have, I think, two of the positions are probably locked down, right? It seems like AJ Terrell obviously is going to be the top corner, and it seems like D. Alford has kind of run away with the slot battle, which good. Like I don't really think we needed to move off of D. Alford. I think it was, I didn't like him being benched last year. We all know this, but
Weird.
it does seem like Clark Phillips, Mike Hughes are the two guys competing outside for that other corner spot, and then Antonio Hamilton has been playing more in the slot behind D. Alford, which is kind of interesting to me. But we also know Hamilton can play outside, so it's like maybe they just wanted to cross train him more inside, as like they're basically, you're going to be the guy that's like our first backup, like no matter what. So that if you can play inside or outside, that like we would love that. But yeah, I know what Daniel Flick was saying about the corner battle still is that even though Hughes and Phillips are sort of splitting the reps, it seems like the drumbeat is that it's going to be Phillips more than likely. But I gotta talk. I gotta shout out my UCF legend, Mike Hughes. He did play well the last time he played outside. He's played very badly in the slot, but I also would rather see Clark Phillips. But I have to shout out my guy, UCF legend Mike Hughes. But the shout out is over now, so we can talk, reasonably about this group.
Yeah, I don't I don't know. I don't know if there's really going to be a true secondary full-time outside cornerback besides AJ Terrell on this team this year. And I think that's probably why, like you said, we've seen Antonio Hamilton working in behind D. Alford, because he can do inside out, and so can Clark. And so I'm thinking the reasoning behind that, okay, maybe we'll start out, we have Clark, D, and AJ out there, but then we want to mix up, and then we want to get bigger on the outside. Then we'll bring in Mike, and then we'll keep Hamilton in first, so Clark gets a breather, and then so on and so forth. And then you just kind of keep mixing and matching. And I think that's really the way that we should look at this group, or it's how I'm just kind of looking at it. I think when we see the depth chart, it probably will be Clark's name first, but man, I wouldn't be like, they seem to really like Mike Hughes. And I think there's a really good shot for him to have his name at the top of that list. But when it all is said and done, I think we're going to see a pretty even distribution, and maybe a little bit closer than we had initially expected.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think, Mike Hughes did not play exceptionally well last year as a slot corner, and I think that sort of soured a lot of fans on him. And to be fair, like in his NFL career, he's been very up and down, right? He's had good years sandwiched between some sketchy ones, and that's honestly just NFL
But
quarterback,
those
right?
bad years, he was in the slot, like you said.
Yeah.
I was
So
surprised that he was playing in the slot when he was brought over, just because
yeah,
there's been familiarity with him, and it's like, okay, we've seen kind of how
yeah.
he does in each spot. So
Yeah, that's what was surprising, because Jerry Gray loves Mike Hughes, so I don't know
yeah,
why he would put him back in the slot. I guess he felt like he had to. I mean, I don't know. I'm probably because they invested so much in Akuda, like getting Akuda in here, and he
yeah.
did have a decent cap hit, so it's like, they're like, okay, well, we're gonna clear the decks for Akuda, so that means Hughes, you're gonna cross train in the slot and play the slot. But I guess we'll see how much. Like if he's playing outside, I guess I don't have as much of a problem with it. But the thing I do like is that we named 5 corners here. And it's like, when's the last time I feel good about the 5 deep. I don't know that I love the number 2 outside corner, like especially, but I think the 5 deep is like 5 guys that are NFL starters, essentially, like guys that can start in the NFL. And I think a lot of times we see this Falcons team carry like 3 to 4 of that guy. And then it's like the 5th guy is like, oh no, like we better not see this guy on Sunday or it's going to be a problem. So I like that. And then they do have some other guys that they brought in, some former UDFAs and UDFAs. It seems like Anthony Johnson has gotten some hype. So, it seems like they have a decent room. I could still see them adding someone here at some point. I don't think it's going to be like Stephon Gilmore. I know some people are like, oh, we got to get Stephon in here. It's like, sure.
Hey,
Yes,
I'll
of
take
course.
Witherspoon.
Yeah. Yeah. Witherspoon. Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I wonder.
I would feel better about the outside spot just with that move. And that's not,
just having a guy that we know has played the spot in this defense. And it's like I'm thinking they haven't signed him because they like Phillips better than Witherspoon. That's my instinct. But I don't see a problem with bringing in Witherspoon to be like a primary depth guy either. Like, I mean, it's better than your sixth corner right now. So I mean, you pay him what he made last year, which was like 1.5 mil. Just get him
That's
in
what I'm
here.
saying. It's not,
Like, we know he knows the defense. He's got the size. He can play run support. I mean, it's so I don't see a downside to it. He doesn't have to start. I mean, it's just But I've talked about Witherspoon like every single show. I feel like.
Yeah, I think that was the name before Gilmore. It feels like it was Witherspoon, and now it is Gilmore. It does feel like you said, if you're really just one name away and it's not the primary cornerbacks, CB1, we know we have that locked up, then you should feel pretty good about the room. And I am nervous again that there's, I feel like the drop from AJ is just a little too much before we get to the next guy. But, we could easily be proven wrong. And if they are, really looking at this as a, who's, best matchup on the outside, for this game versus that, things like that, I'm just going to go with it and see if they're able to hit home on that plan.
Yeah, I don't think that's a bad idea. Certainly, I'm interested to see how it shakes out, seeing who ends up making this depth chart, and that leads us into safety, where maybe even more question marks about. Jesse Bates, no question. Love Jesse Bates. He's gonna lock it down, and we already saw what he brings, like, to this defense. Like, just immediately a huge step up, and just overall play, and just not allowing big plays and all that sort of stuff. He's gonna continue doing that. And it seems as of now that DeMarco Hellams has sort of overtaken Richie Grant as the second safety. Doesn't totally shock me. I think they're going to ask him to play more in the box. And I think it's a better fit for him. So that ends up working out. You may want a little bit more upside than typically, what maybe Hellams gives you. But in terms of being a solid starter, I think Hellams can do that. And then with Grant, it's like, I feel like we're still waiting to see Grant just play any kind of consistent football. I think with Grant, the thing has always been that he's just kind of a frustrating watch, because it's like, oh, wow, that was a great play. Oh, no, that was not a great play. Like, that was the opposite of that. So, it's tough. Tough to see that play out there every day. But, to me, it's sketchy. I don't know. Do you have a take on like the Grant versus Hellams thing, or what do you expect from Grant at this point? I mean, another UCF legend for the record, but yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's going to be pretty similar to, kind of what we just talked about with the cornerback room. I think we're going to see Richie maybe brought in for a little bit more run support, things like that, maybe help cover some tight ends here and there. I think Hellams, I liked what we saw last year. I don't know if it's enough for me to think, is he really going to take over as that second safety full time? But he's in the position to really take that job away. A lot of people have been waiting for somebody to kind of step up and see if there's anybody else besides Richie Grant that can maybe take on some of those plays. I think of the Sam Laporta Lions touchdown. That's one that goes through my mind when thinking about last year. And, unfortunately, there's just too many things on tape. That happens just too many times. And I think that's kind of why at this point they're ready to let Hellams maybe, take the next step and see if he can really, really be the guy.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, Joe, I'm not saying Hellams is like box only, or that he's specifically a box safety. I think he's a better fit as someone that's playing closer to the line of scrimmage because of his lack of range. At Alabama, he did everything, right? He did split zone. He even played deep. I don't think that's the best fit for him in the NFL. I don't think he needs to be pigeonholed into just playing the box. But like he knows what to do. Like, it's not a lack of knowledge or instincts or anything like that. I think just the range on the back end, that was really, I think, the only time we saw him sort of looking a little bit stressed was like if he had to cover a ton of ground on the back end. But, I think anything up to like deep zone coverage, or I mean, he might be able to handle cover 2 okay. I don't want him taking those Jesse Bates snaps where he's like the single high safety. That's just, he's not a single high safety. I feel pretty confident about that. But yeah, no slander on Hellams. I mean, he doesn't have to stay in the box exclusively. Like, it's not like he takes 2 steps out of the box and doesn't remember what he's doing anymore. But
yeah, and I mean, it'll be interesting because we've heard a lot about these penny fronts, these single linebacker sets, and things like that. So when all the other guys come off the field, maybe there could be some interesting, 3 safety looks. Maybe there could be some different things. So, like you said, that maybe you can still have Helms in there to be closer to the line, more towards box. You get Richie to kind of do everything in the mid area, and then Jesse Bates is just being the ball hawk that he is, covering the rest of the field. So, it'll be interesting to kind of see, how they use all these guys, and, if we get to see them out on the field together, because I think there will be some opportunities for that. And yeah, who knows what could come out of it.
Yeah, no, I agree. And to me, it's like the depth, like the fourth or maybe fifth safety. That's where I kind of start being like, maybe we could do something else here, because it's like it. I mean, like Dane Cruikshank, longtime veteran, great special teamer. I don't know how much you want him playing defense. He's okay, right? He's solid. Mike Abernathy, also another guy, good special teamer. But it's like Lucas Dennis, kind of a wild card. XFL star, couldn't really crack the chart last year. He did, I think, he was on the roster a little bit, on the practice squad otherwise. But I do think like adding another veteran safety in here could be in the cards towards the end of camp. If they don't, especially if they don't love what they've seen from Richie Grant, because they could save quite a bit of money for moving on from Richie Grant. So if Grant's not like taking over a decent enough job, I feel like they save like $3-something million by moving on from Grant. So it's like, maybe you take that and pay, John Johnson or something instead, and you feel better about that. I'm not sure, but I don't know if they're going to run out and sign, Justin Simmons or Eddie Jackson or any of these guys, that are frequently hyped up in that sort of range. But I do think like could probably get something in between that level and what we have now to sort of fill out the depth chart a bit more.
Yeah, I think so. And I think that that's kind of just where we are at this point. The year two. There's really only so much left you can do. So, we'll just kind of have to see how it goes.
Yeah, we'll see how it shakes out. And obviously, if people play well, then they won't have any need to sign anyone else, and they don't have to. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I know we can't get out of here without talking special teams. That is I know that's a requirement every time you come on here. But I think the most there's no drama with Younghoe Koo, in my opinion, or Bradley Pinion, really. No offense to Ryan Sanborn, tough spot, but he could be trying out for that practice squad emergency kicker spot. But yeah, I mean, I think like Avery Williams versus Ray McLeod in the returner showdown, I think that's the battle to watch on special teams. Like, I think those two are going to be fun. And like, I think that'll actually be an emphasis. Like, I feel like most years it's like, oh, guys were returning kicks, whatever. It's like this year it's like, no, this is like serious return competition. So
yeah, the new kickoff rules have definitely made, I think, returners a little bit more valuable. And I think the question is going to be, is it valuable enough for that to be, their only job on the team? And we've seen Ray McLeod seems to be proving that he's going to be a contributor elsewhere. Avery Williams' opportunities, I think, out of the backfield are pretty slim and to almost non-existent. Robinson's made it clear that the offense is going through Bijan. Bijan was drafted, top 10 for a reason, and they want to use him like McCaffrey. And so with Tyler Algier right behind him, it, definitely means that there's not going to be, too many touches left for Avery Williams. So he's really going to have to, I hope, bounce back and get to form to where he was, because, maybe the team does want somebody who handles the punt return, one of the kick return spots, and then there's really 2 kick return spots this year with how the new zone works, and then Ray McLeod fills the other one. Rondell Moore has done some return work. He hasn't done a lot of punt return work, or he hasn't done a lot of return work recently, but he does have experience with punt returning. So there's another guy on the roster that can at least give you reps there if somebody goes down. We're much more capable at returner this year than we were last year. There shouldn't have to be an emergency Robert Alford situation or anything like that. So I'm very interested to see if Avery Williams is going to return to form and then lock down one of those spots. And then, if Ray Ray's going to be out there, if maybe something surprising like Jace McLean.
Right.
The new kickoff rules just kind of offer a lot of opportunities for different types of returners. You don't necessarily just need a speed guy. Vision is going to be very important, which I think Ray is going to benefit a lot from. it's going to be interesting to see, if there's anybody else on the team that shows them something and they're like, oh, well, you know what? We really need this, and he's going to give us an edge in the return game.
Yeah, no, I agree. I think that one's fascinating. I think it like Ray being in the mix as like a starting receiver, like I think in some ways actually helps Avery Williams, because it's like they're probably not keeping like two just returners, right? Like it's like if you're like, or they might keep like one pure returner that, and Avery Williams can play special teams otherwise too, but it's just like, he's mostly going to be returning and like the fourth emergency backup running back. Like, but I do wonder, like, since Ray seems to be like, he's going to be the third or fourth receiver at worst, it's like, okay, well, he's just like his roster spot, he's getting it no matter what. So he doesn't take up the like special team spot that maybe Avery Williams is going to get. So in some ways, I wonder if that actually helps Avery, because it's like, okay, we can keep one special team focused guy, that's Avery, and then, we can have one special teams focused wide receiver, that's Hodge, and then like Ray is also a special teams great, but he's just going to be a starting receiver for us, so it doesn't matter, so it's all good. So I wonder if in some ways that helps, but I think this staff has a clear emphasis on the special teams, so I think that'll help the specialists like Avery Williams. It's like they do think it's really valuable. They've invested in it. They invested in it under Arthur Smith, to their credit, and they're investing in it now under Raheem Morris, and I think that's going to continue to be a point of emphasis. That why can't we be a top 5 special teams unit? Those little advantages. The further you get, the little advantages start to add up, and you got to build that stuff out. So
during during year 2 of the Arthur Smith regime, we were a phenomenal special teams group, top 5 in DVOA, RIP DVOA. Don't hear
4-1 out.
Anybody,
Yeah.
Nobody references DVOA anymore. But in the days of DVOA, we were one of the best in special teams. And last year, we definitely dropped off. We did lose some contributors. And so it'll be interesting to see if, JD, Jace, Casey Washington, there seems to be a lot of capable young athletic guys who we got in the later rounds that are primed to make their own contributions, because it would be great if we had 3 or 4 Kadarius Hodges. I remember when we had, Troy creating fumbles as a rookie when he was cutting his teeth on special teams. So, you really hope that you can see a couple of guys here emerge, because there is going to be a few players who that is their path to making this roster, is going to be being the best special teams player. So that's probably my favorite part, I think, of training camp and preseason, because those reps are 100% full go during the preseason. The kickoff, the punt return, everybody's going all out. It's probably the only time that everybody is, for the game, and you really will see, jobs won and lost during that part of the game. So really excited to see who's going to show out on special teams during preseason and training camp.
Yeah. I mean, you lived up to the special team sommelier, label here with that analysis. So, but yeah, I think it is legitimately interesting to see the special teams and how teams will approach the kickoff returns. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. To just see how that plays out for the Falcons and elsewhere, but especially for the Falcons, if they're good. If they do it poorly, then maybe less fun. But we're just gonna hope that it's all good, that they know what they're doing, because we have no other choice. So we just have to hope for the best. We're at their mercy. So we please play well, Falcons. But yeah, Tre'Shon, good stuff. I don't know if there's anything else you wanted to cover before we wrap up tonight. I think we covered pretty much everything, but
I think we covered everything. Okay. It'll be interesting to see first time play callers, Zach Robinson and Jimmy Lake. So we will get to kind of see them kind of get to break in, and that's probably the other aspect that I think that the only thing we didn't really talk about. So yeah, just excited to kind of see those guys kind of emerge into their roles and watch everything go and progress, hopefully positively, throughout preseason training camp.
Yeah, I do wonder if we'll see more like mock game scenario type stuff. They didn't do it a ton under Arthur Smith, but I do wonder with, again, 2 new play callers, if they want to do a lot of that, like do as much of that as they can, and like and I think everybody likes it. Like the players like it, coaches like it. It's sort of like, wow, maybe we should just do drills all day. Maybe we should just like play football. Wow, crazy thought. But I think that sort of stuff, like it's not exactly like a game, but you can get used to like we're gonna run. This is okay. We come in with these plays. Oh, we like took a sack on the first play. What do we do? It's like, oh, we got to, we're at 3rd and 1. Do we like throw or run? What am I gonna call here? That just giving your play caller sometimes, and I know a lot of times they do like 2-minute stuff and all that. So just giving your guys a couple like some opportunities to sort of test out and practice what it's gonna feel like to be in those moments. So.
Yeah, I think competition will be a big thing in practice. I think that you'll get to see a lot of that. That was a big thing under Quinn. Seems like that's going to be a big thing with Raheem as well. So really hoping, especially for you, because I know you're going to be there. They get to see some good back and forth and see some good, just kind of simulated live action.
Yeah, the live action is always great, and definitely looking forward to that stuff. But yeah, guys, think we basically crushed it. I think we got all that stuff. Tre'Shon, thank you so much for coming on, guys. He's at Trey3Sean on the X, Twitter, whatever. Joined us over at the Falcoholic. Still also writing over at Sporting News, so check that out. Anything else you want to let the people know about before we sign off?
No, nothing at all. Thanks for having me once again, Kevin.
Absolutely. Really enjoyed it, guys. I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin. Please like, subscribe, all that good stuff. We really appreciate that. Check out the Patreon if you want to get in on some of that exclusive content. Patron Fantasy Leagues, we're going to be firing those up soon, so look for some announcements on that as we get into the preseason. We usually run those drafts, towards the last preseason game, because nobody likes having players injured in the last preseason game. It's kind of lame, but we'll keep you updated on that. But yeah, if you want to play, just make sure you're signed up in either the Patreon or the YouTube channel memberships. And we will communicate further from there. But yeah, thank you so much, guys. We will be back to our usual schedule. So we'll have a show on Friday, and then we'll be back next week for the training camp coverage. I know we're going to have Adnan back. I believe Gina's going to be there as well. So got a lot of good stuff coming your way. So stay tuned for more information on that, guys. Thank you so much for joining us tonight on the Falcoholic Live. Tonight's show was, of course, brought to you by